Others having encountered some that appear to be almost like a two-arm, two-leg, and a head praying mantis type intelligent life form that are apparently incredibly intelligent and very gentle, but to someone who would have insect phobia would be kind of freaked out, and et cetera and so on. And so
there is no hostile intent on the part of any actual extraterrestrial civilization, and if there was, you and I would not be breathing the free air of Earth. And more importantly, that these extraterrestrial civilizations are here to help us and to understand us and to be here when we become a mature civilization ready to go into space peacefully. None of them are hostile, by the way. If they were, this conference wouldn't be happening. We wouldn't be breathing the free air of Earth, and I'll explain in a moment why. And I invite all of you to become ambassadors to the universe with us. You can all do it. And I'm going to get into some stuff here that may make you uncomfortable. You want to get into some strange stuff? Do you? Okay. All right, here we go. A prelude to this. There is a highly classified project to set up a nexus of fear so that the people of the world would accept the costs of interplanetary war. And they would be using the following: alien reproduction vehicles. These are man-made devices that are anti-gravity that to any casual observer would look like something UFO. Number two, psychotronic weapon systems. These are electromagnetic devices that interface with consciousness and can deceive people very easily. And number three, most importantly, programmed life forms. These are PLFs. And these are creatures that look like a gray or a reptilian or what have you, and they're man-made. I know where they're making them. I know the team. I have people who have been on the team who have created them. They are not extraterrestrial. They are alien, but not extraterrestrial. They are weird, and they're weird science, but they're not ET. This is the big hoax most people don't know about, and this is the information that I have been most threatened with providing. Had you heard of any the projects that deal with ET simulations? What I'm referring to here, there have been some contact events. The one you're referring to, I have sources, was actually not ET, but was, if you will, a staged event by military or special operations to look ET because this woman had seen something classified. Have you heard of those sort of operations?
Yeah, but I'm not sure if
false INW.
Yeah, right. We did do that. Yes, OSI did that. There was a special group out of the 7602nd Air Intel Wing at Fort Belvoir that came out and did that. They had these people that had maybe some sort of defects, anatomical defects that were brought in to fool people into thinking they're aliens. Yeah, I can't give you any specifics because the program is still classified, and they probably are still doing it. I wouldn't doubt it. They were still doing it.
Yes, I've interviewed a number of men in those special operations. Programs.
Yeah, there was a special, a highly classified operation that occurred in Tacoma, Washington, and I'm saying maybe 86 or 87. That was exactly, it was at the a naval base in Seattle. I think it was Whidbey Island Naval Air Station, I think. But anyways, with Naval Air Station up there, where these civilians got onto the base and got into something, and they saw something they weren't supposed to see, and this group came out and went into their home and scared the dickens out of them and
Staged an alien event.
Exactly.
Maybe he was just one of 122 other OSI agents at that time who were working the UFO counterintelligence beat, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, you got Navy and FBI and who knows what other organizations. I've talked to other researchers over the years who have come to me with stories about how the military and the intelligence community has always been monitoring the UFO conference culture. I had a conversation, in fact, I'll just mention this, with my Canadian friend Victor Vigiani. He told me such a story that he had come across years ago. I don't think he would have any problem repeating it. That it came to him through a contact that this was the case, that CIA was monitoring the UFO crowd, as it were, way back in the 70s and 80s. So I don't think this is any new information, and we shouldn't be surprised. The fact is that the UFO field at high levels has always been infiltrated. The story of the infiltration of NICAP back in the 50s and 60s has been pretty well discussed. I wrote about it. Other researchers long before me were writing about it. A man named Todd Zeckel was writing about NICAP infiltration by the CIA long ago. So it makes sense. Look, if you've got a military intelligence situation where you're monitoring the UFO phenomenon, you know it's real, you know it's a problem, you've got to keep it under wraps to a large extent, then you need to monitor civilian groups. And you need also, to the extent necessary, to control those civilian groups.
Right.
So that they don't go into areas where you don't want.
To fool people and thinking they're aliens. Yeah. I can't give you any specifics because
And this is the information that I have been most threatened with providing. And I'm going to get into some stuff here that's may make you uncomfortable. You want to get into some strange stuff? Do you? Okay. All right, here we go.
Even though throughout our long history, people saw what we would call UFOs, and they also encountered beings, or I guess I should say claimed that they encountered beings that were not from here. It was really only during the 20th century that this really happened in the sense of non-human looking beings, that is, aliens. It's true, like there were sightings of so-called fairies and little people and things like that. So I shouldn't make it a full blanket statement like that. But I'm talking about the types of aliens that people report nowadays. That includes beings we call the Greys. Right? And it also includes other types of beings that are sometimes overlooked that people have described. Other humanoid beings that are short but not the Greys, sometimes described in various crash retrieval accounts. I discuss this in the book as well. It also includes taller entities, and it includes beings that look like other species on Earth, like insect-like beings or reptilian type beings, and others still that look sort of human, but not quite human. So when you go through these reports, as I have gone through them in preparing this book, you have to allow for a substantial amount of error on the part of witnesses. I think that's just inevitable. But the thing is, there's been a tremendous amount of consistency with the basics. In my view, something definitely is going on regarding other types of beings that are here. Now, these other types of beings do not all act the same. One group has consistently been linked to the phenomenon of abductions, and that is the Greys, of course. I spent a fair amount of space in the book analyzing the Greys and what they appear to be up to. There is clearly a covert operation going on. And in the book, I make the case that this operation is known to at least some of the human elite that has power today. And also, I make the case that this elite is powerless over what is going on, or at least they feel that they are powerless to do anything about it. And that is one big reason for secrecy on their part. It's not the only reason, but it is a big reason. I don't think that they are able to stop this. And if they were to out the whole thing to the rest of the world, I don't think that they are confident that they could deal with it effectively, even under those conditions. And I think that's why they're not. That is one reason why they're not saying anything. I also think, and I wrote in this book, that the abduction program, I think, is going on for multiple reasons. It's not just, the main reason everyone talks about is the creation of a genetic hybrid species, one that looks human while still possessing critical qualities that the Greys have, and also their allies. If you believe that the Insectalin type beings are their allies, which I think David Jacobs is probably right on this, and that the Insectalin type beings are really running the show in the background. I think that's a reasonable hypothesis. But anyway, the point of these hybrids is that they look human, but they have certain qualities that these other beings also have. One of those qualities is some form of telepathy, or if you don't want to use the word telepathy, maybe some level of mental influence that they are able to exert. So yes, you can see this element of it as a form of infiltration, and I do think that is a genuine possibility. One of the things that many, not all, but many abductees talk about from their human hybrid handlers is about some sort of coming great change. If you go back on this channel and you listen to the interview I did with Dr. David Jacobs from a couple of years ago, he talks quite a bit about this. But a number of people have mentioned this, and from a number of different abduction researchers, not just David. Quite a few abductees have talked about this, that they have heard about this from the hybrids or the hybrids that they have interacted with, that there's going to be a great change coming, a great change. No one gives any details. One thing to me that is quite obvious about that is that we are going through this great change right now. This is not necessarily something that the aliens are going to be causing. It could very well, and I think this is the case, something that they knew about and is happening. We're doing the great change right now. And it's not something that's happening overnight, but it is something that's taking place over the course of a couple of generations. It's not that long in the grand scheme of things. It's happening. Our society is moving into something totally different that's never existed before. And it's a fair question as to whether or not it's becoming literally anti-human,
or at least non-human, some kind of non-human environment, it is clearly, in my view, becoming disconnected from our natural state of being. So that is a question we really want to be asking, and I do ask this. But this great change, this is the key. Those societies are very possibly incredibly stable. Stable in a way that human societies have never seen any such type of stability. We're biological and our lifespans aren't that long, and we have passion and we have ego and we've got all of these other qualities. I don't think that these other alien groups operate like that any longer. My best speculation is that they are probably ruled by a very, very advanced, highly sophisticated set of algorithms. It doesn't mean that they have no agency of their own individually, but the sense that, comes to me from the people who've had interactions with these beings is that there's a very regimented form of society and very likely a very stable, and I'm almost inclined to say ossified type of civilization. And this is all speculation on my part, but this is what I believe is very possibly the case. So yes, they would have a very strong interest in overseeing and potentially managing this process. And then you're getting down to a very tricky problem of counterintelligence of this presence. And, these again are issues that I do discuss in the book, and they have to be an absolute nightmare for any human groups that are charged with dealing with this. I can only imagine. Doesn't mean that all the groups out there are bad, or seek to control us or do us harm, but it is entirely possible. And one continues to hear the leaks and the rumor mill from within the classified world that this is in fact the case, that there's at least one group that we really have to worry about.
Getting back to your question about the intentions of these other beings, Dr. Greer made it very clear that his opinion was these aliens are benevolent. In fact, he said elsewhere that they don't even do abductions, that if one was abducted, that was clearly a military operation. I heard him say this.
Do you believe that, Rich?
What's that?
Do you believe that?
No, I absolutely do not believe that.
Right.
I think that there are military abductions, yes. And to argue that all of these are military is an absurdity when you look at the true phenomenon of the abductions, when one actually reads the literature. Okay, and this is where research is so important. It's really easy for anyone to go up on a soapbox and just say, here's what's going on. But if you haven't done the reading, if you haven't really become familiar with all of the research that's out there, and I'm talking about the work of people like Bud Hopkins, David Jacobs, and John Mack, you list the three top ones, but they're not the only ones. There are many other researchers who've collected an enormous amount of data that does not lead to the conclusion that these are military operations. Now, some of them are. There are what are known as Milabs. I cover this in my new book, and you'll read it if you haven't gotten to it yet. That's a real phenomenon in my view, but that not even close to answers all of the nuances of the abduction phenomenon. And so by going out there...
Why would an intelligent man want to present something that you and I both agree is an absurd case for anyone who's taken more than a superficial look at the evidence?
Well, this is a great question. I've asked myself this question, Bill, many times. And we are not the only ones who've asked this question. I mean, I don't get it. I'm not that close with Dr. Greer. I mean, I've chatted with him. I interviewed him, in fact, for a magazine article a number of years ago, and he gave a very interesting interview. But the thing is, understanding this fact, why is it that someone has, in my view, the ability to make such impressive progress in certain aspects of this field and then have this blind spot that is so huge? I don't know. How is it that a person can do this? Are there agendas we don't know about, or is it simply a normal human foible? And that is a question I don't have the answer to. I don't know how to answer that.
President Clinton has been denied access, so they want you, a doctor,
who had a family connection to these programs and also to information.
And how did they know about you?
I have to ask, just because I watched Steven Greer's latest documentary over the weekend, which I wasn't a big fan of, but he alleged in this documentary that all extraterrestrial life only wants peace, and he claimed that any cattle mutilations or abductions are only the U.S. government trying to trick people into a false alien war. What's your opinion on that?
Who is he working for? Because that is counterintelligence lie.
The problem is everyone wants to be first to be second. No one wants to stick their neck out on this. When I put these briefings together, Lawrence Rockefeller hosted the Clintons at his ranch, one of the old Rockefeller guys, and he wanted the truth out, but his brother David Rockefeller, Chase Manhattan Bank, doesn't. And Lawrence was the philosopher of the family. He went to Princeton with McDonald, old man McDonald of McDonnell Douglas Aerospace. And Lawrence really did want to get this fixed, but he got surrounded by people from the CIA that took all of his money and flushed it down the toilet. But when he was hosting the Clintons at his ranch, and he was going through all these materials that we had put together, Hillary Clinton stood up and said, "Stop. We don't want to hear any more. This is too dangerous." And that was the end of that. So by 1998, I had concluded that neither the Congress nor the President nor the United Nations, and I had met with the Boutros-Ghali family, the UN Secretary General, were going to stick their necks out on this. It was too hot to handle. Therefore, we did the Disclosure Project.
Seem like they're very tall, like maybe 7 feet tall. Very broad shoulders, very long arms, quite hunched over. Mantis beings, and being on the table and seeing them putting their hands inside of my stomach. It just feels like something being taken. And feeling that burning sensation. It's just terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. My experiences started, I guess, when I was little, and I had no idea what was going on. And it was basically waking up in the middle of the night with something in my room and not knowing what it was. And I didn't understand a lot of it. And I guess what had happened as an adult, and it happened mostly, I guess, in the last, probably since I moved to that's when it happened the most, where it was almost like a weekly thing or a monthly thing, where I would wake up and there's something in my room, and then all of a sudden it's almost like fear. It's like you're frozen and people are like oh, well, why didn't you look around and see what's on the walls? And why don't you make notes, or do you see any writing? It's like, when you're terrified, that's the last thing you want to do is, oh, I think I'm going to make some notes. You're just like praying that you're not going to be killed or die, or what's going on. This is so unusual. So what was happening to me was I would wake up, I would see something in my room, and then I would feel this pull, and then I would be on like a metal table, and I would have there like usually three, but 2 or 3 beings in the room looking at me. They weren't speaking, and I didn't know what was going on. So there would be instances where I would be on the table, and something was being inserted into me, and you can feel it all. You can feel the pain. So you're trying, it's like you're paralyzed. You want to scream because you can feel absolutely everything that's going on in your body, but you can't move. So then it's like you almost like pass out from the pain, but then you come to and you're still in this. So that's what happened with me. So all of a sudden you kind of feel this push, like, and then you're back in your bed and you're like, what just happened? And a couple weeks later, waking up, something in the room, and then feeling that pull, and then being on a table, and then something kind of going down your throat, and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to die. I can't breathe. I'm panicking. And it's just like you're helpless. You can't move, but you're just shaking from fear, and I'm going to die. This is it. I'm going to die. But I hear in my head, you signed up for this. This is something that you're here to do, and that means nothing to me. All I know is I just want to be home. So it's you think you're about to take your last breath, and then you can breathe, and then you're back. I'm back in my room. And another time, waking up, and same thing. Something's in my room. I'm on this table. There's lots of light. They don't appear to be very tall, but then people are like, well, how high is the table? I'm like, I have no idea how high the table is. What are you telling? Like, that's not anything I'm looking for. So being on the table and seeing them putting their hands inside of my stomach, like I can see their hands, and then I don't see anything else. And feeling that burning sensation. So that is the type of thing that has been happening over the years. That's been going on for years. So I was explaining when I was at the conference 2 years ago that the last time I remember getting up in the morning, and my sheets, I always have like white sheets, and getting into bed, and I've got my pajamas on, and I see this stuff on my sheets, and it looks like it's green. It's like a smoothie, like if you had a kale smoothie or something. Is that kind of a mossy kind of green, but it looks like if you were to take a paintbrush and flick it, like it's just kind of flecks in the bed. And I'm like what's going on? So of course I'm checking my pajamas, and I don't see anything. And then it's like, okay, don't have my period this month, don't have my period this month, don't have my period this month. And then like after 3 months, waking up, something is in my room, waking up on this table, and feeling something again going internally. So you can feel it going, I say internally because I didn't want to say vagina and I didn't want to say anus, but it's like you can feel something going inside of you. And then it's like this, it just feels like something being taken. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's the type of thing I've been experiencing. So waking up a lot of the times with bruises or marks on my body. And again, I don't tell anybody this. I don't share this with anybody. I don't want people to know that this is going on in my life, and there isn't anyone that I really share this stuff with, other than, I did meet some really nice people at the conference who seem like nice people that I was able to share this with and kind of open up with. So why am I saying this today? I have no idea. But these are the type of things that have been happening. And like I would wake up and in the morning, like have this like a triangle on my chest, like, and it would last for weeks. And I'm like, okay, is it eczema? Is it an allergic reaction? But it would last for weeks, and I would put cream on it and it just didn't go away. And then wake up one day and it's completely gone. And those are kind of the things that have been happening. I will be driving, and it will be broad daylight, and I'll look up and something's hovering over my car, and I'll be looking around going, okay, I'm in traffic. There's a lane here. There's a lane here. We're all stopped at the light. Why am I the only one seeing this? There are flashing lights on this thing, very, very colorful. How am I the only one who is seeing this? And I remember calling my ex, who isn't into this at all, but I was so terrified. I just called him up. I'm like, have you heard anything about UFO things or whatever? And he had said at the time, actually, I heard something was happening in Montreal. And this was probably about 7 years ago when this started happening. So now a lot of the times when I wake up, they're not experimenting or doing things to my body that I can remember, but I will wake up and I'm on a ship, but it's like a small ship and it looks like it's, maybe enough for 3 people. I'm usually in the back and there's usually 1 or 2 in the front, and I feel like I'm going to a bigger ship. And what I can see in the sky is these ships look like they're all kind of interconnected, and they're like a slate color, and they're the size of cities. They're huge. And I'm like, how come people can't see? I don't understand why people can't see this. I can't be the only one seeing this in broad daylight. So those are the kind of things I'm seeing, and I'm looking around thinking, am I losing my mind? Am I crazy? I don't investigate it. I don't read about it. I just kind of hope it goes away. It doesn't go away. And so that's kind of the type of things that I experience on a regular basis. And about 3 weeks ago, I was saying earlier, I went to bed, and before I go to bed, I do yoga all the time. So it's like before I go to bed, put cream on my feet, put my socks on, get up in the morning, and it's like, okay, those marks were not on my feet when I went to bed. I know what my feet look like. They were not there. And I can show you pictures of those. I have those on my phone. And again, it's like, what's going on? But there's always that feeling of waking up and something is in the room. And there are different types of beings that I see. Again, I don't investigate. I don't look around. I don't go on the internet going, oh, what does this look like? And I think I'm just kind of like, okay, maybe today it'll go away. Maybe today's the day it's going to stop. But it started, like, again, I remember as a child having weird experiences but not knowing what it was. And then when I moved here, it would be like once every 6 months, and then once a month, and then 2 or 3 times a day, and then almost daily, and then it would stop for 6-7 months, and then it would start up again. And it recently started up probably maybe 3 months ago, and it's 2 or 3 times a week. They look like when you see on TV or like, oh, they look like grays, but to me they have large almond-shaped eyes, but they're not completely black. I can tell that there are eyes, very tiny noses, very tiny mouths. But again, when you see drawings, they have this little sliver of a mouth that looks sinister, but to me they don't look sinister. Other ones that I have seen seem like they're very tall, like maybe 7 feet tall, and they kind of look like very broad shoulders, very long arms, quite hunched over. Other things I've seen are little ones that they look like they have like a burlap type of cover on them. You can't see any face, it's completely blacked out, but 2 little red eyes. Again, they don't seem scary to me. When I was at the conference, I did talk to Sid, and he did tell me about mantis beings, and I'm like, okay, do they look like this? And I described what I was seeing, how they look, and he said that's similar to what he had seen. And being on different ships and different environments, things like that. What else can I say regarding? I can tell you something interesting that happened at the conference when I was speaking. After the conference, I spoke, and a lady came up to me, and she's like, what does your name mean? And I'm like, actually, it's just a nickname. It's just something my parents called me because my full name was too long. And she said, I remember you. And she told me that she was having experiences in her 40s, and then it stopped. But she said she had experienced these things for many years. And she said to me, I remember you from the ship. And I'm like, well, I had never told anybody what it looked like on the ship. So she was describing what she had seen while she was on a ship. And I'm like, okay, I've never told anybody. I never described what the inside of it looked like. So she said, I remember you as a child crying, and I remember picking you up and soothing you, going, it's okay. It's okay. And she said when her kids would cry, her husband would say to her, like, what is this sound? Like, why are you saying this? And her husband wasn't a believer, but he supported her. So she said, that's how I soothed my kids. When I would pick them up, I would just go, and I can't remember the lady's name. And it was just like she spoke to me after the conference and introduced me to her husband. And I'm like, I never told anybody that. So that was a pretty interesting thing to go, okay, I'm not crazy. She remembers me. She remembers my name. She described the inside of the ship that I didn't tell anybody at the conference about. So that was something pretty cool that I was like, okay, validation. So yeah, sometimes I just feel like a guinea pig, an experiment. I get angry. I get frustrated because I don't understand why it's happening to me. It's like, okay, if you're coming here to do things to me, maybe you can give me something good. Maybe something positive can come out of this, like turn around my health or something. I have no idea why. So, but I just keep hearing that I signed up for this, whatever that's supposed to mean. I don't know. I don't know. They don't seem sinister or mean or evil. I don't have anything negative to say other than, why is this happening to me? I remember how it feels. I know that it's painful. I know that it's scary. People say, why did you, like I said, take notes or look around or see any drawing? No, I'm just wanting to go home. I don't want to be here. It hurts. And I'm scared. I never feel it when I get back into my room. It's always while I'm there on the table that I feel it. And there's no numbing. There's no, let's give you something so you don't feel the pain or calm you down. It's just like, just get right in there. It's just very, I wouldn't say aggressive, but there's no kindness. There's no gentleness. It's just get in, get out. And it does seem like an experiment. It does feel like you're experimenting on a human the way humans would experiment on animals. It just seems very cold and very cruel. And I have no idea why me. And I know from talking to Sid, he had said that there are like about 1.5 million people who have experiences. So why are we going through this? Why is this happening to us? And that's it. Too scared. It's just terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. And like I say, on a good day, I don't like to be around people. I am a people person, but I tend to kind of hibernate and cocoon because you pick up a lot of energy around people. But I have no idea what that means. I just want to be home. I just want to be safe. I don't want it to happen, but again, there's all kinds of conspiracy theories out there that I'm sure people may have stories or why it's happening. I don't know. I just want it to stop and just continue with my regular life.
What is the meaning of all this? Why are they doing this? I can boil it down to two words, and it's a guess. Because these beings do not say, but all the indications point to something I just call, in grandiose terms, planetary acquisition.
Have you got any, we're going to get into the physics in the next hour. Have you got any cases that come to mind that you're able to talk about where humans were physically harmed? We don't have these things flying over American cities blasting us with laser beams or something, a la Independence Day. But they do intrude. Are there any cases that you guys studied where humans were hurt?
Hurt or affected.
Well, affected. We'll start with that one.
Look, I think anytime anybody comes into contact with something we don't understand, there are effects on a human being, both mentally, emotionally, and maybe even physically. So I'm not trying to be evasive here. I just want to make sure I answer your question without getting myself in trouble.
Right. Well, how about that?
Some of the reports that we would get in were very interesting because you would have people, besides saying I saw something, they would say, it's interesting because I had this weird loss of time perception. While I was engaging or while I saw it, it almost felt like time stood still, or in some cases, I looked at my watch and all of a sudden, now, 30 minutes had gone by, and there's no way that could have happened. In other cases, some people reported being a little bit nauseous. Now, the question is, were they nauseous because they were scared, because of the fight or flight reaction that we all have as human beings, or were they nauseous as a product of something else?
the clandestine nature of it prevents people from knowing. I'm going to throw out an erroneous number. I'm going to say maybe 90% of people who are abductees do not know that they are abductees.
How does that work?
Well, they have had unusual experiences. They might have unusual displacements in time and place. They're doing something at 1 o'clock, and then suddenly they're across the street and they're doing something else, and it's 3 o'clock. And they think, gosh, that was weird. What happened? And then they think, well, I'm just not going to think about this. And because their abductees are not supposed to remember, and they sort of know that, and they just go about their business, other ones incorporate it into their lives thinking, this is just the way life is. Oddly enough, but I have had that. Now, people see other people being abducted and are not abducted themselves. People are abducted in groups and can confirm each other's abductions. People can sometimes, and this happens, meet other abductees at random, run into them on the street or something like that, and each one recognizes each other from being together on an abduction event. It's rare, but it does happen. And so there's a physicality to this. It's not a mentality. They have bleed-through memories that are benevolent and wonderful and great. And for me, the way people process this in a lot of different ways, depending on their background and all. And I'm not in the life-ruining business. So if they want to think that, fine, that's fine with me. I usually don't see people who have that kind of a sense of this. I see people who really want to know what exactly is happening to them. I once had a woman who was heavily into that concept of benevolence and spirituality and all that, and related to aliens from another planet. And she came to me, and we'd agreed to do whatever session, and she was taken on board. Her clothes removed. This happened to her. That happened to her. This happened to her. That happened to her. And I'm just saying, okay, what happens next? And I ask them questions about what the next is, and then what happens next, and went on and on and on and on until she came back down, and that was it. She wrote me a letter after that saying that she was never coming back to me because she didn't want to remember the things she wanted to remember.
If someone says, I experienced something within, how could anyone externally say to you, no, you did not?
Right. Well, I'm not going to say that. I mean, I would not say that whatever happened to them didn't happen. But if they're interested in finding out whether it actually did happen or not, the chances are that it would be a different situation for them. But if they're happy and good, as I said, there's no reason for them to come to me or to other serious researchers. They have a life that they're leading, they're happy about. That's fine.
As I said, I know significantly more who talk about experiences in their sleep on another dimension. What's your experience with that, and what do you say to those people?
I have never actually dealt with a person who came to me who had a non-physical experience. That is simply not part of the phenomenon. People are physically missing from their normal environments when they are abducted. They are not mentally missing, and other people see them in bed and all the rest of that stuff or whatever. That simply, I have never had that. That does not happen.
We're dealing with millions upon millions of people who are describing this phenomenon. What is it then?
Planetary acquisition through creation of human-like hybrids. Virtually every abductee has had, if it's a male, has had sperm taken from them, and every woman has had eggs taken from them, ova. This is a reproductively oriented phenomenon, and it has been since the beginning. The question is, why are they doing that? Because from the very first cases we ever discovered, there was that reproductive aspect to it, and it has remained rigidly constant throughout the decades. Absolutely. Now, the latest information is that these beings are, in fact, that the ones who look truly human and who are human and who look absolutely average are moving into towns, into apartments, between the ages of 17 and around 23 or so, in 2s and 3s and sometimes in 4s. And some of them are moving in independently into an apartment. They are using abductees to help them assimilate themselves into what normal human society is. Now, there's a backstory to this, too, as well, what happens when they're children and all that. And there's only one very slight, hardly noticeable difference between them and us. They can control us neurologically, make us think anything that they want us to think, make us say anything they want us to say, make us do anything they want us to do, and we cannot do that to them. That makes us a second-class species, not a citizen, but a species, and them a first-class species. There's an enormous imbalance there that is insurmountable. That's the problem. That is the problem. This is a workforce we're looking at, from a top to bottom corporate workforce. Gray aliens are probably hybrids, in my opinion. The ones who are the leaders are what we call the insect-like ones. Whether they have anything to do with insects, I don't know. But they have triangular heads and they're very thin. People say they look like praying mantises. But I think they are the ones who give orders and everybody else takes orders. And there's the more you look at this, the more rational it becomes. It's a rational program. It's not like this is so bizarre we can't even get our minds around it. It is not like that. We are capable of understanding what is happening. And so even though there are millions of people who think that this is benevolent and wonderful, which is okay, there are millions of people who are not so sure about that, who are abductees also.
Thank you, Dr. Takeover.
Thank you.